Welcome back, y'all. I'm excited. I hope y'all are. We're going to build our first iOS project here. So here in this first or second lesson, I should say, we're just going to kind of be covering Xcode again. In the last module, we talked a little bit about Xcode and just kind of got a little bit familiar with it, but that was before you knew anything. I want to take another little lesson here to go ahead and go back through a little bit of it and kind of refamiliarize yourself with Xcode and maybe talk about a couple new things. So let's go ahead and create a new Xcode project here. This is going to be a single view application. We're going to click next, and we're going to call this one Hello World. And just make sure everything kind of looks like this here. We're going to use Swift and we're going to use storyboards. And for this application, we're not going to need to use core data, unit test, or UI test. So let's go ahead and click next. And let's drop that in right here. Okay, cool. So we kind of went over this a little bit again in the last module. We're actually not really going to be playing with this a whole lot in this first in this first application that we're building. For the most part, actually, all that we're going to be messing with for the first application is the main.storyboard right here and the view controller. This view controller.swift. But let's kind of just go over real quick what all of these different things mean here, or at least the things that we might work with mostly in commonly in applications. So let's go ahead and open up the app delegate here. So we're not going to use this at all right now. It might look a little overwhelming. That's okay. We're probably not going to use this for a few applications, but basically all the app delegate is a place that you can tap into certain life cycle hooks of the application, if you will. So like if there was some code that we wanted to run when the app was resumed, like for example, if the user went to their home screen and then came back to the application, we could tap into that life cycle hook and we could do some code there. So when the user comes back, we want to do X, Y, and Z. Alternatively, if the user's closing the application and we need to do some final logic to wrap things up, we could do that here as well. And then beyond that, this is a place where you'll do a lot of just general configuration sometimes in larger applications. But again, we don't really need to worry about that right now. I just kind of want you to be familiar with it. So the scene delegate, this is kind of similar, but this is actually new to iOS 13. This wasn't here previously. So we're not going to go too deep into the scene delegate right now, nor are we going to go into the app delegate. As it becomes appropriate to start using these, we will. But I just kind of want you to see them and just kind of know what their purpose is. So that's the app delegate and the scene delegate. Now the view controller here, this is a file, and inside this file is a class called view controller. A view controller is essentially it represents in code the actual view that the user is looking at. So if we want to do certain things when the user taps on a button, or if the user goes to this page or whatever, we're going to do that in the view controller class. So we will definitely be writing some logic here in this application. So let's jump into the storyboard real quick. The storyboard also represents the view controllers, but this is like the layout of the view controller. This isn't actually the code. So if we wanted to add labels to the screen and add buttons and add switches and toggles and whatever would be on the screen of an application, we would do it here in the storyboard. And this storyboard can actually have multiple view controllers. This is just one, and in this particular application, we're only going to have one. But if we wanted to add another one, we could come into this little window here and we could drag and drop this onto the storyboard and we'd have another view controller. We can also define the relationships between the view controllers here if we want to. So you can see this little arrow here. This just means this is the entry point of this storyboard. So when the user opens the application, whatever we drag and drop this arrow onto is going to be the first view controller of the application. So that kind of covers that. We'll come back to this in the next couple of videos because we're going to be obviously wanting to create the UI of the application or the user interface of the application. So we'll come back to this in a little bit, but that's basically what the storyboard is. Now just to wrap up a couple final things, the assets folder here, this is where we're going to be adding things like images, and this is where our app icon would go. We're not going to worry about any images or any app icon for this first app, but this is where we would do that. We'll definitely do this in the next couple applications. And moving on to the launch screen.storyboard, this is this actually behaves the same way as the other storyboard, except this is just representing our launch screen. So if you've ever opened an application before and there's like a little loading screen at first, that's kind of what this is right here. This is going to be displayed to the user. as the application is loading into memory. So we're also not going to worry about this in this particular application, but I just want you to see what this is. We'll do a couple of these in the future applications as well. And then lastly, we have the info.plist. Again, I know I just keep saying this, but this is also something that we're not going to be messing with in this application. But this is basically a file where we can basically just define attributes about the application. Like, for example, if we're going to ask the user for permission to use their camera in this application, we would put that here in this file, and the text that we want to display to the user when we're asking for permission to their camera, that might go in this file. Again, something we will definitely be doing in future applications. So that kind of sums up what all these files mean. I just wanted to refamiliarize you with what the environment is that we're working with. But with that being said, in the next video, we're going to be jumping into actually working with the layout and working with the view controller file. So let's go ahead and jump on over. If you're going to be just jumping right in, let's go ahead and keep Xcode open because we're going to resume right here. And if not, just go ahead and make sure you save this file so that we can pick up in the next video. See you then.